Did you ever have a situation where somebody said something to you, and when they said it, you knew exactly where you stood with that person? I'll give you an example. When I was in graduate school, I went for a master's and then I went for a PhD. And so after each of these, you have to take a big test. The test is hard. It's offered once every 6 months. It's a really big deal. In my master's program, I had a friend who I'd been friends with for the entire program. We take the test. I passed the test. She did not pass the test. And what she said was, "Even you passed." Even I passed. In my doctoral program, it was the same thing. I had a friend, I was friends with her the whole time. And at the end of it, I passed my test. She didn't pass her test. And what she said, same thing. "Even you passed." Now, both of these girls, it wasn't just that statement. There were lots of little tiny things peppered in. And I had ignored those things and discounted those things because they weren't that big and I'm not particularly petty. But once that one statement was said, I couldn't ignore because the whole puzzle came together. And then I understood. And when I understood, I could never look at them again the same because now I know what they think of me. So that's what this energy is about. You're going to be confronted with something, not to make you feel bad, but you'll see it. And it's not something that's going to sneak up on you. It's something that you've probably already heard the whisperings and you already feel it, but you're going to see something, then you know for sure. And the reason that you need to know for sure is because you need to be liberated from it. And it's only in knowing that truth and really, really understanding it that you can cut it off. This full moon is in Ashwini Nakshatra. Okay, so we're going to do some visuals. This is the Chariot card. Here are the two horses. So you see they're harnessed together. Ashwini is the dual charioteers. So it's all about actually horsepower. The symbol of Ashwini is a horse's head. So the head, how we think and move through our life. And the point of Ashwini is to balance. So a perfect story for Ashwini, if you've seen Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen. She had a vision in mind. And each time she traveled, she would go to a town and she would accumulate resources. And each time she got a little more. So she would go to the next place and she would get more. Then she would go to the next place and she would get more. Because she had in mind where she was going. She was going to take over this kingdom, but she needed the resources to do it. Remember, a lot of horses in her story. And one of the other features of Ashwini is, remember when she freed the slaves? Because she said, if I'm going to do this, I can't have it be under slave labor. They have to be, I have to do it the right way. That's another drive of Ashwini. You have to do it the right way. So with this chart for the full moon, what we're looking at is us as individuals, and then who we are partnering with, and who is with us when we're building the work of our lives, when we're constructing what it is we're supposed to do. More visuals. The way to understand what this 2-week period is going to be about. Take this one again, all right? Now imagine you have a cloud of smoke over here, and you have a cloud of smoke over here. So it's illusion, things are not clear. And this energy is having you think like you're driving a chariot. It's having you break through that illusion, and I'll show you how. A full moon is in opposition. It's in opposition to the sun. So when you're confronted with something, you'll know that you have to make a change, but the moon's light only comes back by what it sees in the world. So you're going to be alerted to something that you see out in the world, then you'll know you have to make the change. The first fog is the sun and Mars. They're together in Chitra Nakshatra. And Chitra energy is the energy of have a star, who is the divine architect. So this is really, the sun is the physical expression of your soul, and Mars is your drive, ambition. It's, all those thoughts that you have. Mars is when you put them into action. So this is the conjunction of the sun and Mars is really action oriented. And it's in Chitra. So it's looking at what you're building. Chitra is also very interested in who you are partnering with. I'll link a video below I made last year, and it talks about you don't partner with everybody. There are specific people who are good for you and people who are not good for you. Chitra creates illusion. It's things like fine art, cosmetics, armor, things where with a lot of them, you can't really tell. It creates an illusion. But Chitra creates an illusion so that you can see past the illusion and you can learn. That's one end of it, right? Now the other fog.
I'm a OG boy. Know that they ride or die.
The dominants of the chart are Neptune and Venus. So Neptune is the planet of disillusion. No barriers, no boundaries. Neptune rules dreams. It rules the entertainment industry. Again, illusion. And then Jyeshta, Venus is in Jyeshta Nakshatra, which is Scorpio energy. Jyeshta is the energy of straight out deception, manipulation, lies. Like Jyeshta is after power, and it is after power by creating and making things unclear. So it creates illusion on purpose, intentionally. So when you have Venus in Jyeshta, these are the kinds of relationships that would be considered very toxic. There are the things where it's like, think political maneuvering, but think about that in your personal life. So if somebody creates a terrible situation, and then if you react appropriately to a terrible situation, it will be you who is made to feel stupid for reacting in what is a very natural way. This energy would also be if somebody extends to you, like, again, they created a terrible situation, but then they extend some beautiful words of encouragement. And it's really confusing. But the thing is, they don't really mean the words of encouragement, because if you were in a good relationship, it wouldn't be confusing. You would just know you were in a good relationship, right? That's the Chitra energy. If it's not clear, that means it's not clear. So if it's clear and you know, then it's good. But if you don't know, then it's not good, right? So we have a lot of illusion, and we have the illusion to make us learn, and we have the illusion intentionally to deceive us. But we have a lot of illusion going on. This is the energy that needs to move forward. And this is, Ashwini is the divine impulse. It is 3 parts Rajasic energy, which is fire energy. And it's also called the mist, because it's, we're going into the shadowy world, into the actual material waking world. The ruler of Ashwini is Ketu. And Ketu is, it's the south node, but it's also all the parts in us. I'll say your creative genius, your dormant genius, your latent genius. Excuse me, another thing about Ketu is it's also called your Daemon. So your Daemon can be your creative genius that's trying to break out, but if not regulated, it causes illusion, delusion, deception, and it becomes a demon. So again, with this, you have the dark and the light. So you have the clarity, where it's your Daemon, your creative inspiration, or you have the dark inspiration, your demon. So what is going to happen in this next 2 weeks is you will see something, you'll be confronted by something out in the world, and then you'll realize what it's about, because it's about liberation. So you're seeing it so that you can be free from it. And it's not a nasty energy or anything like that. Think of it in terms of, think of the horses again, right? So you have your work in the world. And anytime you hold space for a relationship that you're not sure what it is, do you know how energetically expensive it is to hold space? That takes so much to hope for something, right? That's not to say that it's a bad thing to do that, but if the other parties are not contributing and it's just you, that pulls on your horses, pulls on your resources. So it messes up your balance. So when you're looking at what you're producing in the world, what you're doing, it takes you off course. Like, this is the point of the energy. It will show you something so that, imagine if like a rope around one of your horses and you're trying to go, you need to cut the rope. Or else the horse will die. Like, you won't go anywhere. So we're looking at what you're building, who you're partnering with, who you let near you. And you'll see something out in the world. And all of a sudden, it will click. It will click that this isn't necessarily somebody who has your best interest in mind. This isn't necessarily a situation that is going to work with the vibration you hold now. When you have in mind what it is that you're doing, these people, these settings, these same scenarios, all they're doing is pulling on you. So the liberation element of Ashwini is also tied with what's called yagna, and that is a sacrificial fire. The sacrificial fire, a sacrifice is made in order to bring about a change in the situation. That's why we do any ritual, because we'd like to bring about a change in the situation. So if you are a person who likes to do ritual, this is a good one for you to do. You can do it however you want, but I know for me, I know what I'm doing is when I have those periods, when I understand just what it is, I will very meticulously build my fire, build my yagna, what I'm going to sacrifice, what I'm going to liberate. Because when you have work in the world and when you have work that you need to do, anything that's not contributing to that is taking you off course. And that is what this full moon energy is about. If you are a Gemini, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is going to take place in your 11th house, which means you're going to be making some change. You're going to be liberated in some way, making some sacrifice when it comes to your friends, your networks, your associations, the people you associate with by choice. 11th house is also the internet and people you meet, like those kinds of networks, so your social media networks. Now, the way that you're going to find out what you need to liberate, it's going to come from 5th house. And 5th house has to do with children, creative projects, writing, entrepreneurship. So there could be something in one of those areas when you're working on it will not seem like it's related. And you're working on something, and then you suddenly become aware of who you're associated with. And when you're thinking about the work that you are building in this world, you'll understand that you'll need to cut someone loose, or you'll need to disassociate with some group. But you'll find out about it through your creative pursuits, or maybe a child will tell you, or maybe if that's your work, in the course of your work, you'll see like what kind of change you're going to have to make in your friend circle. If you are a Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is going to happen in your 12th house. 12th house is the house of spirituality. It's your privacy, your hidden self. It rules dreams, rules getting away. And it's going to become apparent to you through something that happens in your 6th house. 6th house is daily routines, right? So you're going to be going about your day, and suddenly when you'll be confronted with something, and 12th house is your deep subconscious, and your blind spots, the recesses of your mind, your past lives. Something's going to come up, and you are going to understand how you'll need to make a change when it comes to your spiritual practices, for example, maybe when it comes to your sleep, maybe how much time you need to spend by yourself. These are 12th house things, but it will be when you're going about your day that you will come to this realization. If you're an Aries, sun, moon, and rising, this is happening in your first house, the house of self. Through your relationships, your partnerships, your close one-on-one contacts, the people you are in the closest relationships with, 7th house stuff, some interaction is going to be making you aware of an element of you and where you're going to need to liberate some aspect of yourself. Maybe you are taking other people into consideration so much that you're actually losing your sense of self. Maybe your body, your workout routine, how you're taking care of yourself, what you think of yourself is suffering because of the attention that you are giving partners or other people. And so something that happens with other people, 7th house stuff, is going to bring your attention to that, and you'll make a change with you. If you are a Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy takes place in your 10th house. 10th house is career, your public reputation. It is how people see you in the world. It's you out on the world stage. How you're going about your work in terms of who you are in this world. Something's going to be illuminated by what happens at home. Maybe you find out a secret at home, or maybe somebody says something to you, or maybe you are engaged in some interaction at home. And then you come to see yourself in a different light when it comes to your 10th house. Because 4th house is who you are behind the scenes, and 10th house is who you are to the world. And when those two are not congruent, you are not working your path. So you'll see something, and then you will understand some adjustment that you're going to have to make in your 10th house. Maybe a job, maybe an aspect of a job, maybe what you're known for. Something of these is going to be sacrificed. Something of these you'll need to liberate yourself from maybe some sort of professional identity. But that will come to light through something that happens at home. If you are a Leo, sun, moon, or rising, this is happening in your 9th house. So you're going to have some 9th house change. And the 9th house has to do with our mental expansion. It rules travel, higher education, knowledge. It's learning, and expanding your mind. And you're going to understand some change that you'll need to make in your learning process by what happens in your 3rd house. 3rd house is a few different things. 3rd house is what's in proximity to us. So it's your neighborhood, your community, like your actual physical community, who you are around. It rules siblings, it rules commerce, and then it also rules your actual mundane activity when it comes to communication and thinking. So maybe you are going to be writing something, just going about your everyday correspondence, perhaps in a conversation with siblings. But how I can see it happening is you're going to be in some type of 3rd house issue that comes with, like, you're writing, you're communicating, and then you realize, what am I doing with like all this 9th house stuff? All of this learning, it's supposed to lead someplace, it's supposed to do something. So you'll come to understand something about your 9th house and what's happening for you or what's not happening for you based on something that happens in your 3rd house. But your 3rd house is what will bring it to light, and the 9th house is where you'll make the change. If you are a Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is happening in your 8th house. 8th house has to do with your deep psychology. It has to do with your past. It has to do with your trauma. 8th house is sudden gains, sudden losses. It's sex, death, regeneration. It also has to do with things like secrets, debt, money, like large sums of money, and the things you share. The things you share with your intimate partner, with your marriage partner. So you're going to be making some 8th house change, and it's going to be brought about by something you see in the 2nd house. And 2nd house has to do with your actual stuff, the things that you earn as a result of the work that you do. And 2nd house also has to do with your esteem. So there can be some issue that has to do with your money, with your bank account, with your physical, looking around at your house, at your dwelling, at your things. And you'll come to understand something deeper. Or maybe something happens and you realize, again, 2nd house is about self-worth. So you'll realize how you'll be confronted with something about how you see yourself and how you value yourself. And it will shed light on some change you need to make. With 8th house, a lot of it has to do with the past. And so maybe it's time to liberate yourself from the past. But you'll see what happens. So it will be something brought about by the 2nd house, and it will be a change that you'll make for yourself in your 8th house. Libra, sun, moon, and rising. This energy is taking place in your 7th house. 7th house is your committed partnerships, your one-on-one relationships, contracts, business partnerships, but the people who are close to you, like what you're connected to. You're going to see something about yourself, 1st house, that's going to make you realize that you need to make a change in your 7th house, in your relationships. This could be something, maybe you think a certain way, or maybe you watch yourself behaving in a certain way, or possibly the discipline that you have for yourself, you're seeing it and you're like, what am I doing? And then you look who you're around, and it's a connection that's no good. So you'll understand where you need to make some kind of cut, sacrifice, where you'll need to liberate yourself somehow in 7th house issues, but it will be brought about by a realization in the 1st house. If you are a Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is taking place in your 6th house. 6th house is so boring. It's your day-to-day routines. So it's how you expend energy in the day, how you organize yourself. It also rules, 6th house in Vedic astrology. It's the house of slavery. So like your work, like when you go to work every day. Scheduling. Some people also think about that as slavery. I do. It's going to come to light that you're going to need to liberate yourself in some 6th house issue by something brought about from your 12th house. And 12th house is your spirituality, it's your dreams, it's seclusion, it's your psychic abilities. So you have an interesting one this time, through a dream, perhaps from being quiet, spending some time alone, you're suddenly going to realize that your days are not what they're needing to be. So the work that you need to do in this world, you're not getting it done, or it's not going how it should go. But you'll come to that understanding based on something that will happen from the 12th house. So you'll see it in the 12th house, you'll see it in a dream, you'll see it in a meditation, you'll see it from being out secluded, and then you'll make a change in your 6th house, your daily routines. If you are a Sagittarius, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is taking place in your 5th house. And 5th house is the house of fun. It is the house of love affairs, children, speculative gains, entrepreneurship, publishing, like all good things. So when it comes to your creative endeavors, your 5th house stuff, like what you're bringing into the world, this full moon is particularly useful for that because, I mean, this is about what you're bringing into the world. So you're looking at your creative endeavors and you're looking at how you spend your time and what your creativity actually looks like. Then you're going to see something in your friend group and you're going to realize something about your creative endeavors. And it could be something like you're being taken off course. It could be something like you're trying to fit in with these people. You are needing to have some kind of profile in order to be part of this group. Or you're part of some network, and in order to do that, you're sacrificing some part of what your creativity really is and what you can really do. So you're going to be liberated in some way from something that's holding you back in your 5th house, and that's going to come to your attention by way of your 11th house, your friends, your networks, your associations. If you are a Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is taking place in your 4th house. 4th house is home, family, has to do with the mother, your place of origin, right? Your roots, who you are behind the scenes, who you are when nobody's looking is what 4th house is. There's going to be some 4th house issue that's brought to your attention, but it's going to come through your 10th house, right? So something about your home life, something about your origins, something about, where you've come from, maybe how you consider that is going to be brought to light through something public that happens. Remember, 10th house is your career, your public reputation. It's also associated with your job, but it could be that, doesn't necessarily have to be that. But like who you are in public, what your public face is. You're going to see something and it's going to be jarring for you because you're going to realize what you thought of yourself or what you thought of your origins or what you thought of some kind of home relationships, that you're going to hear something, like you're going to see something, it's different than you thought. And you're going to get that information to liberate you. So you'll be liberated in some 4th house issue, but it will come through something you see in the 10th house. If you are an Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, this energy is taking place in your 3rd house. And 3rd house has to do with your neighborhood, your community. So what's around you, what's in proximity to you. It also has to do with your siblings, short distance travel. It has to do with your correspondence, with your communication. So this is stuff like your writing, your emails. And you're going to realize some way that you're going to need to be liberated from 3rd house things by something you see in your 9th house. And 9th house is about the expansion of the mind. This is where probably Aquarius is happier, right? In the 9th house. But 9th house is about expansion of the mind. It has to do with travel, with higher education, with higher learning, with religion, with spirituality. But it's all of the ways that, that you broaden yourself, right? So you're going to see some 9th house issue. And you're going to realize something about what you've been doing in the 3rd house and how that's been holding you back from the real actual work that you need to do in this world. So you will be liberated in some way, set free by some change that you'll make in your 3rd house, and it will come about by something you see in the 9th house. If you are a Pisces, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon energy is taking place in your 2nd house. And the 2nd house has to do with your stuff, your actual physical stuff, and it also has to do with the way that you value yourself. So it's possessions, the things you own in the world, what you accumulate materially from the work that you do, but also like what you value. And in that, how you value yourself. So you're going to realize something about either how you value yourself or how you value your stuff based on some realization that comes from the eighth house, some eighth house issue. And eighth house has to do with, in your case right now, eighth house has to do with things like the past, deep psychological issues, trauma. It is debt, secrets, things that have remained hidden. It also is about occult knowledge, so things like astrology, your tarot. Right? And the eighth house also has to do with sudden gains and sudden losses. So something's going to happen in an eighth house way, dealing with dealing with eighth house issues, and it's going to bring your attention to how you value yourself. And the second and eighth house axes it's an interesting one, because your second house is supposed to be how you feel about, it has your esteem in it, but also your stuff in it. And so how you feel about yourself based on what you've accumulated. And then the eighth house is your spiritual accumulation, but you don't have any tangible stuff to show for it. So you're going to be understanding this intangible eighth house way, and you're going to realize something about the way that you value you or the things that you have based on that occurrence, and how that is impeding the work that you need to do in this world. So you'll liberate yourself through some second house issue by something you see in the eighth house.